the bagpipes mean only one thing. It's time for DERFCAST, episode number 30. Welcome. From the studios in the inner sunset in San Francisco, I'm joined by Max the Cat, the security guard, who's sleeping at the end of the bed doing his job, and Pipes, my engineer, who I could not do the show without, who's also, where is she? She's sleeping on the other end of the bed. But anyway, I want to welcome my special guest today. I have a repeat guest who was on one of my very first podcasts, and this man is synonymous with big-time wrestling and Roy Shires. He's a member of the Northern California Professional Wrestling Association Hall of Fame, Mr. Allan Bolte. Welcome, Al.
Thank you, Fred. Great to be back.
Thank you. I enjoy hearing your voice so much.
Good. Thanks.
I know we did two podcasts, and to the listeners out there, the number 2 and number 1 podcast are lost when I left FCC Free Radio and when my original laptop decided to meet its maker. That this one is on SoundCloud.com, which all of my other podcasts are, or you can go to DERFCAST on Facebook and listen to me there. So welcome, Allan. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Fred. Yeah, you too, on this rainy Sunday here.
And I guess I'll start out, give people out there, because I have a bunch of new listeners who really aren't familiar with Roy Shires or, who you are, but to the core of our fans, we definitely are. When did you first get your start for Roy?
The very first event that I did was December of 74, and I was very young, and what basically happened, I had attended pro wrestling as a fan. I really loved it. I always wanted to announce, not wrestle, but announce. And Louis Miller was a local promoter. He promoted Santa Rosa, Stockton, Richmond, California, and the Richmond Auditorium, which was a pretty big venue then. Andre the Giant wrestled at the Richmond Auditorium, totally sold it out. And the announcer didn't show up in the summer of 74, and Louis Miller said, "Announcer didn't show, you're going to announce." I had the Napa sport coat in my trunk. I said, "Whoa, okay." I remember just loving every minute of it. I did a good job. I didn't want it to end when it was over. I said, "Oh no, it's over. I want to do this again and again." I remember superstar Billy Graham, Pat Patterson, and Ripper Collins were in a 6-man tag main event. So that shows how long ago that was, the 3 big heels. But it went really well. Louis Miller said, "You're really good. I'm going to have you out in Stockton next week."
Boy.
Said, "Oh, perfect."
Wow.
Yeah, talk about right time, right place.
Yes, sir.
Shire happened to be in Stockton and said, "You're not bad." He was very gruff the way he always spoke. Everybody knows it. "You're not bad. I'll put you in the Cow Palace in December. And his basic words were, if you're good, I'll keep you forever. If you mess up, you're getting thrown out the same night."
Well, I bet you that's nicer language, but yes.
Yeah. And here I was in front of 16,000 people at age 18, 19, I think 18. And went from there.
Well,
all the years with Cal Palace till Roy quit promoting in about, I think it was 81 or 82.
Correct, around there. Like I told you before when I first met you and then on our first podcast, you'd come to the ring and the place the lights would go off, the house lights would go off, and then the ring lights would go on, and first the timekeeper would come out, and then you would come to the ring, and the place would just erupt. It would just turn into a wrestling match from then on. And
that was the day then. And I'll tell you, Fred, I celebrated some really good memories. I went to the rodeo at the Cow Palace a few months ago, the famous annual.
Right.
Talk about a big draw. I think they're there for 4 nights. But here I went to the Cow Palace, and here I am. Somebody came up to me, one of the ushers. "My God, I know you. I was ushering when you were announcing in the Cow Palace. I've been here 30 years. And what an honor, and how nice to see you." I really was honored, and of course he recognized me too, because I'm sure it really changed. And then on my own, I went through the back as if I was part of the rodeo. Nobody questioned me. I went way back and up the stairs, and the original dressing room, all of that is, except for remodeling, pretty much the same.
Wow.
At the Cow Palace, you would go in the wrestlers, everybody went at the back door, parked at a special private lot in the back door. You'd walk in, the fans would be behind a gate, at least 50 of them, watching everybody come in. The wrestlers,
Right,
and you'd go up the stairs, up about at least 15 stairs, and there were 3 or 4 dressing rooms with showers, etc., where we, had our instructions and where all the wrestlers, everybody went. And it's still the same. That really, when I drove by the Cow Palace at night, there's a little red flashing light at the very roof of the Cow Palace.
Is that still on?
And it's still, yes. And they did a beautiful remodel. The building is beautiful. Their sound system is fantastic. So they were from going to tearing it down to this. They've obviously reversed their decision. I mean, there's so many more venues since the Cow Palace was here. So
Yeah.
they're really gonna. But yeah, that was pretty exciting.
Well, you've had a storied career. I mean, now while you were with Roy, you actually took a bump from Buddy Rose. You was that the only time you got involved in the action?
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
Because you'd
that
beat.
was when Buddy Rose, with a lot of heat, and Buddy Rose and Shire, basically the argument was over pay, and the crowds were dropping a bit, is true. I mean, I can remember looking in the Chronicle, and always gave the results in the sports section.
Right.
And they said the crowd was only 6,100. Well, today, when it was streaming, 6,100, that's awful. But, some people, they put on live shows like this, and they might only draw 1,000.
Right, if that. Right. I don't know what Hood Slam does or whatever, but yeah, you're very, very true.
Yeah, and it's too bad because there's so much excitement in these indie shows, and when they bring in, like when Mike would bring in a Chris Masters or some fairly big names, you'd think, because the show is great, the ticket prices are not expensive, you'd think it would draw more. They put posters around, wrestling posters,
right,
internet, all that.
Well,
Yeah, the Buddy Rose situation, that night, Buddy showed up and was not going to wrestle because I think he was not booked, and they had their issues. He came anyway, and he said to me, I'm going to go in the ring, and I want you to give me the mic, and I'm going to la-da-da. And I said, well, does Roy know about this? No, so I said, look. So then Shire said to me, I know Buddy Rose is here. If he tries something, just avoid him. He cannot talk, And I thought, I'm really between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
I like Roy. He's my boss, basically. I love announcing. He signs my check. I don't want him pissed at me. And Buddy Rose also was a good person. I mean, he was very over at that time, Playboy Buddy Rose. So I said to Rose downstairs, look, I cannot get involved in so all I'm saying is if you do this and you do come in the ring and interrupt stuff, I'm going to act like I'm not giving you the microphone at all, and you need to either push me or grab it or make it obvious that I'm not trying to give you the mic, and that's what we did.
That's great.
And I kept resisting, and the crowd doesn't know what's going on, and pushed me and physically forced it out of my hand, and then he went on about how Shire is a lousy promoter, and he's not paying everybody well. You people should know this, and blah, blah, blah. It didn't really do him any good, but he made his point. And if I remember, Roy did call the police, I believe, but they really weren't.
What good it did.
He was basically, did anybody get hurt? No, we don't know what's going on there. If somebody gets hurt, call us.
Good old Daly City Police Department didn't want any part of it.
Yeah. And wrestling, probably when they heard it was pro wrestling, big-time wrestling, they probably thought, well, what do we trust? I mean, is this part of the show?
Yep.
You want to have real cops here? Like on WWE, they'll have police. Well, are those real?
No, they're just, they're jabronis. They're,
Yes.
Right. They're undercard guys.
That was a fun night. That was probably in the last year, probably.
Uh-huh. Well, you were there towards the end, but you were there for the Pat Patterson, Fuji Toru Tanaka.
Yes.
Yeah, you were there for that, and we talked about that.
That was just very kayfabe, if you will. Some of your listeners don't know what that's referring to, but it was a very kayfabe. Something happened the week before. Fuji got pissed and left or something, and the show must go on. They already taped that Monday night. They used to tape the Channel 40 in Sacramento Monday night for the Saturday live Big Time Wrestling on Channel 44.
Right.
And so Roy, Toru Tanaka, who didn't really look like Fuji.
No, he was way bigger, Alan. Way bigger.
Yeah. And a little bit shorter, I think.
Yes.
Maybe not. And put him in a hood and wrestled. And I was told nothing.
So you introduced Tanaka as the Great Fuji.
Yes.
Wow.
People started booing. I knew nothing. Roy was being so discreet about what he was doing. He wanted as little people involved, as possible.
Well, he was afraid of refunds, right? I mean, wouldn't you think now that you look at it, he was afraid of refunds or losing his license or...
Yeah.
And Patterson and Tanaka were consummate pros, so they pulled off a good match, I've heard from a lot of people,
Yeah, but a lot of the fans were yelling and booing, and I just acted like I don't know what's going on. And Roy was so, I don't blame him. It's the less people who know anything, the better.
Right.
I don't blame him.
In that situation.
Yeah. So it turned out to be a pretty good match and event, really, but just I felt people booing and people yelling and ringsiders looking over at me like, what am I supposed to do? I'm just the announcer.
Well,
There's a time to be big and a time to be small.
Right, exactly. Well, my memory, for some reason, that was one of the very few matches at the Cow Palace I missed when Patterson was the champion. I went to almost as many as I could. I loved Pat, and now memory serves right. That was that was before Lonnie Main came in, or that was after.
Moondog Main had been in and out on 2 or 3 occasions. He flew in for the Cow Palace.
Right.
Then he stayed in the territory for maybe 6-8 months.
Yeah, then he went back to Portland and then L.A. and then back here.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was during that time. So the reason why I'm asking you that is, did you stay at the ringside table for all of those matches? For the whole, all those cards you had to sit there? Because I don't really remember.
Absolutely. They called it a press table. It was attached to the ring.
Gotcha.
I sat right at the corner, always, constantly, yes.
Gotcha.
The doctor, there were 2 doctors, and eventually in the early days there was a timekeeper, and then Roy eventually, basically cutting corners, said to me, you can announce and timekeep.
Gotcha.
So I did.
Well, I asked because I remember one time Moondog took the fight out to the table, out to the ringside area, and you weren't there because I was looking with binoculars. But maybe where I did look is you might have, got yourself the hell out of the way because you knew Moondog was coming.
I did that a few times, yes. I would stand, go back 6 feet. But no, I was there constantly. That's how it was. And I remember when Roland Alexander called me to announce years ago.
Right, at All Pro Wrestling.
And he had been running for about 3 years with somebody else. And then he called and said, Allan, I know you're still around. Are you willing? We'd love to have you. And I did. I said, yeah, I'll announce, sure. So his first live event in some high school in San Jose or something, I noticed the announcer and timekeeper table was kind of way in the back, about halfway in the back.
Uh-huh.
And I said, Roland, why is the table way back here? And he said, well, that's kind of how we done it. I said, Roy had it right up at the table, right up at the ring. So right then, they moved everything right up the ring. He said, you were right. And even Kirk White's shows, they're right up at the ring.
Well, Roland was a sweetheart. I met him one time.
He loved Roy.
Oh,
God.
I met him on, I met him on Facebook, and we started talking big-time wrestling, and he goes, you know a lot. Let's talk on the phone instead of chatting. So we talked on the phone for about 90 minutes one night, late at night, and he goes, look, I want to meet you. I want to pick your brain. And I'm like, well, I know, I know what I know, but you have to know more than me. He goes, we can go over what you know. And I'm like, so I went to Hayward. It was right before his school closed. He gave me a quick little tour, and we went out to sushi, and then about a month, maybe 6 weeks later, he passed. Nice guy. Just salt of the earth, but Allan, he was more into it than you and me put together. He knew everything,
Yeah. And I gave thanks to Roland at the award because when they gave me they were giving the plaque to Paul Tramonto.
Did he show up to pick it up?
No, because they said he's very ill.
Oh, that's a shame.
And then they gave it to, I think, Gangrel, I believe.
Yeah, Gangrel's in and out of the Bay Area, up Northern California, yeah.
Yeah. They also gave one to, I also don't know his name, I should. I think he more or less took over APW.
The new owner.
Yeah, I can picture him, but I can't think of his name. But it was a wonderful night, and...
Well, you're a Hall of Famer. You're now a certified Hall of Famer in the sport of professional wrestling.
Was very instrumental, and I appreciated that. And so was Sparky, the ref. And they had live wrestling that night, and it was funny because they had a battle royal, and then they said, well, why don't you guest ring announce? I said, I'd love to. But most of these guys I did not know. I knew Rick Luxury, he was there. But a lot of these young independent guys, I just didn't know. They weren't any of Kirk White's guys, but they really were talented and very good.
That's good to hear.
And they had 2 ring announcers just to imitate me, which was great. The guy was, ladies and gentlemen, get ready. That was nice. And so much respect. It was just all in all, there was so much respect. She deserved more. And there were 7 referees in uniform. Sparky was one of them. And I said, Sparky, I never knew there were so many referees available in this area. And I remember Kirk White yelling at one of the refs, something he did last year, and telling him there's no shortage of refs,
Sort of like
so-and-so, or...
Sort of like Roy.
Yes, it was like Roy.
Just
really
like Roy.
Knew how to yell at you if...
Yeah, that's what you were telling me.
There was one time that Roy really yelled at me, and it took me a week to get over it. It was when the crowds were diminishing, he flew in the Mighty Igor, and he called it a triple main event, and I called it a semi-maiden ends.
Oh.
And then, yeah.
You have trouble saying that word still to this day.
Yes. He took it, intermission, he said, Baldy, you F's that up. I fly him in from Portland at a big expense, and you call it a effing semi-main event. You better learn it's first main event, second main event, third main event. And if you never do that again, your ass is out of here. Don't worry, Roy. If I learned, it's not going to happen again. I'm sorry I didn't know.
You know, in retrospect,
semi-main events. And I knew he was pissed because the crowd wasn't quite what he wanted.
Right.
That got him in his mood.
Well,
and he was attacking anybody around, you know.
That must have been the time when Bob Roop was booking.
Yes.
When they tried to take the promotion from him.
That might have been around there, yes. Kevin Sullivan, Bob Roop. And there was another big rebound that really rebounded. The house is 10,000, 12,000 more. Sullivan Roop feud.
Right.
That was all a whole rebound.
Yeah, they brought that same, since I've had you on last, I did a little bit of research. They did that same exact angle at different places in the country, I think 2 other places. Now Rock Rims would know more, and his book's going to come out soon, which I know you're a part of. And there's a quote from myself in it, but no, you're really a part of. Great gentleman. I had him on a podcast long ago, and about Lonnie Main, that's all we talked about. But yeah, he's a great guy. His book's coming out. And now, you announced Incredibly Strange Wrestling.
Yes.
And one of the wrestlers was named is Vandell Drummond. That's where he remembers you from. That's who I asked you about earlier off air. He was one of the wrestlers in that. And he's a shorter guy, about 5'11", curly hair, white guy, nice guy. He's on a lot of podcasts now. But he said he remembered you. But that place was crazy. Oh.
Yes, and for our listeners, Incredibly Strange Wrestling became huge. Audra Morse is a promoter, very nice woman in San Francisco, very connected. She still does publicity and promotion.
Oh, she's still good.
Third generation San Franciscan, I believe. And still in the city. I ran into her just a couple weeks ago by accident in the city. Big, huge hug. But it eventually was real hot. Fillmore, which is a great venue, for over a year, about every 2 months, ran Incredibly Strange Wrestling, and it totally sold out the Fillmore.
Oh, my God.
Evening Magazine, Channel 5, which is no longer, did a whole thing on that, and a big interview with me, and showed old pictures of me. They were saying that I'd been announcing 23 years, and at that time, it was 23 years. It was just a huge venue. They actually took it nationwide. Audra said to me, I'd love to have you come as the announcer, but I'm guessing you just can't get away like that. And I said, no, Audra, I just can't. And I can't live out of a bus. No.
Right. I don't blame you for that. Now,
she understood that and, had some other people with her to do announcing. But it was really big for a while. And then the Fillmore got pissed because they were throwing the tortillas, which is a part of the Mexican history, some of that lucha. And it was dirtying up the place, and et cetera. They got tortillas with chandeliers, and so they said, well, you can't run here anymore. So she moved it to Slim's on 11th Street. Anytime you move a big venue like that, you start to go downhill. And that's what happened.
Gotcha.
Then she moved it to another smaller place.
Right, and you're missing one detail. That it was never PG from that point down.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I was sometimes embarrassed. And Audra kept laughing. Alan, you're this conservative, nice guy, and here someone slams somebody and says, let's have some good man-on-man sex. I'll mess you up. And it just
went deeper.
It was a little much even for me.
It went deeper than that, my friend.
I know.
Vandell and I were talking about it. Jeff Benson And I won't get into the details, but
she had, everybody was drinking in the back. She had beer, cases of beer, and drink tokes for everybody. Well, maybe just me. She gave me drink tokes, but she was concerned about, is anybody drinking and driving? Because if so, we can get an escort or a limo or,
right.
You know, so I was careful about that. But I did get pretty plastered one or two nights. Emperor, who's one of Kirk White's wrestlers, the funny thing, Audra always had a local pro wrestler on the card, one or two a night. She had her own people, and then one or two pro wrestlers. She had Psycho Johnny Payne, don't know if...
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, very nice guy who I still talk to from time to time. The Emperor, she had Rick Drace, Luxury. She brought him in, but after a while she said, you know, I'm not going to have any of these pro wrestlers anymore. There's just way too much attitude and ego and who's going over and who's not. Why should I not go over?
Right.
And that is what happened.
Interesting.
Johnny Payne did a great thing with Jason Styles, I believe it was, another Kirk's guys now. They did a great match, and eventually Johnny they wrestled all the way outside the Fillmore onto the street. So you can imagine people walking by.
Right.
These two guys are fighting and wrestling on the street. I mean, there were some great shows.
Yeah, I went to one myself. I went to one, and I went to 3 or 4 at the DNA Lounge or whatever they were calling it at the time, Trucadero or.
I was announcing that, I believe, right?
Yeah, you were there.
Sure.
Oh yeah, which is it's so. How can I say? How can I put it? It's just so nice to know you now after knowing of you for all those years. You know,
Well, great.
It's amazing. It's just amazing how things work out. And, you know, Mike, can we talk a little bit more about Andre the Giant? I know you have a couple Andre stories, and the one about Andre and the pizza delivery guy, I would love to hear again.
Okay, and I just want to say, I did an interview at one of the live events, one of Roland's shows. There were people there doing a documentary on Andre the Giant, and they had did a little interview with me with the lights. I don't know where it ever went, but I just did want to say that he just was one of the nicest, kindest. He really had a big heart. He wanted to pick up the tab no matter where you were, but I knew he was uncomfortable being that tall. He said his legs would hang over the bed, even if it's a king-size bed. Even if he got first class, he would just hurt it. And he got ripped off. He brought a manager from France when he first came to the U.S., and he spoke very little English, and the manager was ripping him off. You know, the check would be $3,000, and he'd say, okay, well, the check is $2,000 and my 20%, and that went on. I understand Patterson, also French speaking, kind of eventually jumped in and told him, this guy has to go. And Andre's English was getting better, and so that's kind of a sad story, but he just was such a nice, he and Patterson were here at my house in Albany, and where I've lived forever, and it's just so funny to see him coming in the door and leaning over and we had ordered pizza. I mean, he could eat he could eat a whole pizza. He could take a whole bottle of vodka. I only saw it once, but a whole big bottle of vodka and chug a lug it.
Jesus.
And hardly get drunk. He just was his tooth was as big as my index finger. I mean, just such a nice person. I think you saw that documentary on him. It was done many years ago. That was, all they could say was how good a person he was.
But
we ordered pizza, and I remember the guy coming in with the pizza, and he looks right over at Pat. Andre was in the dining room, looked over at Pat and says, oh my God, you're Pat Patterson, U.S. heavyweight wrestling champion. And Pat says, oh, you know, so many people say that about me. I must have a twin. And the guy left, of course. And I said, Pat, I guess you didn't want to sign the autographs. But I can imagine these guys get that all the time.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. I mean, I don't know if I'd want to be that famous, and not even for one day, you know. But, man, you did not want to cross Andre and get him mad. I mean, I've talked to a couple other wrestlers. They've told me, told some stories. And there's also a bunch of stuff on YouTube, a couple matches of him in Japan, where Antonio Inoki had to come to the ring and stop the match because Andre was drunk, and Medea, I think the guy's name was Osano. I can't pronounce the Japanese gentleman's name who was the wrestler, but really upset Andre. And Andre was, basically the way Billy Anderson told the story was this man was taking liberties with all the other wrestlers and was a trained martial artsman.
You know, I didn't know that.
And so.
Now, are you talking about the Antonio Inoki, Andre wrestler versus boxer?
No. What I'm talking about is one of Andre's 100 tours of Japan. He went over there towards not the very end where he wasn't that agile, but maybe the second half of his career. He was over in Japan, and this wrestler, I think his last name Medea or something like that, was taking advantage of other wrestlers, was stiffing and potato shotting and just not following the script all that well and putting the other wrestlers through hell. And they were letting him do that because, Inoki was a great payoff. If you went to Japan, it was a great, great payoff. And Andre said, I'll get even for you, boss, is how Billy told the story. So Andre went to the ring really drunk and just proceeded to make it a shoot. And nothing this guy could do to Andre could hurt Andre because he's Andre the Giant. Andre started fighting back real. And then Inoki saw this from the dressing room, came out and stopped the match. And Billy and I don't know what he said. Billy said, I don't know what he said, but I'm willing to bet I'll double your pay, Andre, if you leave the ring or whatever. And Inoki was just starting All Japan Wrestling, All Pro Wrestling. Had separated from Baba and all of that stuff was going on.
That has a great story there. Wow.
Well, that was from Billy Anderson.
Well, most promoters would not say, I'll double your pay.
Or something. Something to that effect was said by Inoki, because Andre, if Inoki said, you'll never wrestle her again, Andre would laugh. He could go anywhere in the world. So Inoki had to do something like that, Billy and I figure.
And that's another thing that Shire was pretty strong about. He would always say if he got mad at one of the wrestlers, or he would always say, I'll blackball your ass. And in those days, that was fairly important. A promoter could talk to another promoter in St. Louis or Detroit and say, look, Rocky Johnson or the great Fuji, here's what he did to me. He screwed me on such and such a show. And that really, in those days, those were valuable words.
That's changed so much.
Oh, I know.
It's sad. It's just sad. I mean, I'm so glad that I have you to talk to on my podcast about when wrestling was real. Not real, but you know what I'm saying, was much more respected and more entertaining. And today, it's nothing.
No.
I mean, the last 4 Monday Night Raws, I have not gotten past the first 12 or 14 minutes. I've been keeping a record, in my mind. It's just so bad. And, my theory, and Bob, a friend of yours from Bob's Radio Cafeteria and the Clarences, which you can see on YouTube, they actually had a concert.
Bob's Radio Cafeteria is fantastic, by the way.
Yes.
Check it out.
You get a chance on YouTube or see the Clarences, his band, live. They were in Alameda last Friday. I didn't make it because it was raining. But great band, great group, and a great, great guy,
Absolutely.
And he introduced me to you, so I thank him for that. But
I think that if Bob were a wrestler, put it this way, he'd be a total baby face.
Yes. Yeah, but he likes the bad guys, though. So
it might be a little bit of an ego, I don't know.
But, our theory that we both have and both 100% agree on because it's hard for us to agree on a lot of things. So he's a Cowboy fan, and I'm a 49er fan. But with that being said, we both agree that Vince McMahon, his eyes are now on the network and everywhere else but the United States. Because he could tour in China, he could tour in India, in Europe, the United Saudi Arabia, that part of the world, and whoever he puts in the ring for them, it will sell out. But here at the States, it's garbage. I'm sorry. It's just garbage. And since I've talked to you last, the reason, I have the network. I'll admit I pay my $9.99 a month because of the old school footage that he's now putting on. He has old Mid-South, Florida, Georgia Championship Wrestling. He has Bill Watts stuff on. So, but that's the only reason why I watch it. But when I was down in L.A. at the Comedy Store for Roddy Piper's memorial, I ended up being invited, which I don't want to talk about on air. I'll tell you in private. But I heard through the grapevine down there from the most reliable source that was there, that not only did Vince McMahon not show up at the funeral in Portland, there was not a card or flowers from him. It was just Hunter, Triple H and Stephanie were there in Portland for the funeral representing the WWF. Nothing from McMahon. And it's like, that was it for me. When I heard that, I go, okay, I'm not going to any more live events. I'm not going to put anything in his pocket at all except the $9 a month.
Roddy Piper was at a 3 years ago, maybe, at one of Kirk White's fan fests.
Right.
He was there, and when the show, and I spoke to Roddy and said, is it okay if I call you up in the ring for a quick interview? And Kirk had said that's not an agreement, and these guys want extra for everything. But I said to Kirk, I'm just going to call him up at the beginning of the show. And Kirk was saying, well, that's your call. I don't know. That's your call. I said, well, if he doesn't come up, I'll change the subject or say, hey, we'll be back later. I know how to cover that.
You're a professional.
He did. And the crowd two standing ovations. And it was wonderful. Maybe a 3-4 minute talk about his start in Portland and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It was really good.
Right. Now, you did all the Shires. I'm most jealous. If I was jealous of any announcing you did, would be for the matches he had against Lonnie Mayne.
Yeah.
That
was great.
Because, at the same time...
When he was a baby face and a heel.
Right. Down in L.A., they were both heels. Up here, Lonnie was the face and Roddy was the heel,
Yeah.
I would have loved... I was just going into the Coast Guard. I saw their 2 matches at the Cow Palace. I think there were 3. Don't put a gun to my head if I'm wrong. But I think they had 3 matches. I had gone to boot camp for their 3rd match. I missed the last one that they had at the Cow Palace. Maybe they only had 2. You know what? I'm wrong.
I kind of thought they had 2.
You know what? I'm wrong. I saw Piper fight Pepper Gomez, and then his next match at the Cow Palace was Lonnie. So I saw 2 of those matches, Pepper and Roddy, and then Roddy and Lonnie. And then I missed the 2nd title match because I was in boot camp. But I wanted to go to that one so bad, But I was so jealous because of anybody who's ever seen that, and you saw it, and man.
Yeah. When Piper would come out with the bagpipes and
the union. Well, I guess
I had somebody. Some people sent some messages on Facebook, and I'm not really on Facebook like I should be, but I don't check it real often. But they had said to me when I got this award, this Hall of Fame, oh, you deserve it so much. I've been watching wrestling since those days. You just gave me so much fulfillment in my younger days, and the greatest ever, I'll never forget, the way you announced Gerhard Kaiser as the godfather of wrestling, and the way you would say, Kaiser, and the crowd would go wild.
Oh,
that's what he would say.
It's so true.
I helped I told Roy, why don't you, if you're going to change the gimmick, why not make it the Godfather? And sure enough, that's what happened.
When you would announce, and I remember he was the manager of the Von Brauners. The Von Steigers. He wasn't the manager of the interns. That was Ken Ramey, but he was the manager of the Invaders.
Yes, the Invaders.
The Masked Invaders.
Brauners and the Von Steigers, all of those, and some of those were the same people.
Right. Yeah.
Tommy Andrews was one of the masked who worked with all three of those names, you know.
And I mean, when you would come, my father would only take me to the matches. He'd only even think about taking me if there were German wrestlers on. It's too long of a story. So when the Von Brauners were there, he would sleep through the whole night. And my father worked, 16-hour days all the time. Anyway, that's neither here or there. But he would tell me, wake me up for the main event, So I would wait until you would announce the main event because my dad would interrupt me while listening to you. Who's in the ring? Who's in the ring? While you would do the announcement. So I timed it perfect. After you did the announcing, I'd wake him up. And, I mean, I remember it, Alan, like it was yesterday. And the godfather of wrestling, Gerhard Kaiser. Oh, God, that brings back so many memories.
Let me ask you, when you were at the Cow Palace, where about were you sitting?
I was sitting in this, the section, there was the walk around where you could walk around the whole Cow Palace. And if you went down to ringside, you had to show your ticket to the usher to get through. Well, right there on the edge, right above that walkway, we always had the same seat. So it was like section 15.
I think that's called dress circle.
Yeah, dress circle. It was dress circle. Yes. That's where we always sat because we could kick back, put our feet up on the cement, and have binoculars. And my dad, my dad, when he was awake, would look at all the women, with the binoculars in the crowd. And he was in love with the two blonde women that would always be at ringside, that always sat ringside.
Or were they not the two heavy?
No, there was the heavy one was I think Dorothy, if I'm not mistaken.
Dorothy Hopkins,
right?
Denise, yes.
But there was another one.
Yeah, Dorothy made a lot of entrance jackets.
Right, she made There's that
crush on Pat.
Right. There's that really famous photograph of the Insiders that Rock Rims has. I think he'll have it in his book, or I've seen it. And Patterson's wearing a T-shirt standing next to her, and on the T-shirt it's I made.
Linda Lovelace gay. Yes, that's great. Remember that? Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Those are. Were you seated near where the wrestlers came out? Or?
No. We were at dress circle on the side opposite of where I would say right behind the table, the ringside table. We were going up, so I'd be able to see the good guys and the bad guys come in, and then because I was such a short little kid, real young, I'd sneak in for the main event if my mom took me. If my dad took me, he made me sit there next to him. But my mom would let me just run amok as long as I'd meet her right at the end of the main event. So I'd always sneak and go ringside a lot of times. One time I sat right behind you. There was one seat open. And, little kids could do that. It was when you're teenagers and adults.
New adults. I had comp ticket to So You Think You Can Dance last night at the Warfield. Audra, in fact, got me this from Frederick Spain's Wrestling. That's why she's still connected. But it was on the main floor, but I was sort of in the back. And I had watched, I love being in the front row of any show I see.
Oh, I wonder why.
Reno, Vegas, right in the front. It's totally different when you're right in the front. But I kind of sneaked up into this empty seat in the third row, and I slouched down so I wasn't anybody's behind me. And then I slowly sat back up. I know how to play the game.
Oh, my God, do you? Well, I should...
Bob, Fred, before we go, one funny story, I don't know if I ever said that, was the night when Patterson was a heel. I don't remember the occasion. It was the fans were furious. I don't know what happened, if he used a foreign object, when he
had the mask? Yeah.
Maybe. But something happened. Maybe he belted Peter Marie or something. And the match was over. He was going back with the security, and there were so many people trying to attack him. He, on his own, broke away from the security and ran down to the other side on his own, ran fast down to the other gate and jumped over the steel rail to get back by the dressing rooms. I remember him saying, what's going on? And he took a chance and ran on his own. And bypassed the crowd into empty seats and just jumped up in the seat and ran.
But, you know, you have so many stories. Before I let you go, tell me one story if you could remember anything involving him and Ray Stevens. Because that's, I guess, when you first showed up. They must have been on their second run.
The problem, Fred, is I was a little after that.
Okay, gotcha.
Ray Stevens only worked one or two Cow Palace shows that I announced. I was a little bit after their tag team, their feud.
Right,
but I will say that everybody that I talked to who knew Ray said he was a great, great guy. That he was kind of a down-to-earth home cowboy. And always treated people right.
Gotcha.
You know, I've heard nothing but good things about him, too. But I just didn't really know him. I announced maybe only once or twice when he was there.
Must have been for, like, the Battle Royal?
Yes, maybe it was a Battle Royal. Might have been the first Battle Royal that I announced in 75, I believe.
Well, he came back and teamed up one time with Moondog Mayne against the Von Staggers. And I was at that match, so you announced him for that match.
Yeah, I would have,
yeah. Well, I want to thank you.
That much, no talk or correlation.
Gotcha.
No need to be that.
Well, I'd love to have you on again in the future.
Fred, I'd love to be on again.
I thank you so much. And where can people get a hold of you if they want to? That's if you want them to. If you want utter privacy, that's fine.
They can do an email. Kayfabe was not available when I got email at AOL years ago, but I have KEYFABE at AOL.
Gotcha.
So I guess you pronounce it Kayfabe at AOL. Anybody can send an email.
Gotcha.
They can send cash, checks, margaritas. Send some to Fred, too. And better yet, send some to Bob.
Bob, big bad Bob.
Where are you now, Bob? Come on.
Well, thank you so much, Allan. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time, and look forward to you coming on again. And I'll tell Billy Anderson and Mickey Doyle, who's going to be on the next show together in a three-way, that you've said hello.
Tell them I say they're both tremendous for the business and great people.
Thanks, Allan. I sure will. God bless you.
And happy holidays, everybody.
Right back at you. Thanks a lot, Allan. I'll be in touch.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Well, that has been Allan Bolte. And I want to thank my security guard, Max, my engineer, Pipes the cat. Max is more like a three-toed sloth right now. He's just sleeping. And this has been DERFCAST, here, recorded at the DERFCAST studio, Inner Sunset in San Francisco. DERFCAST number 30. You could listen to this podcast and about 12 others backlogged on SoundCloud.com, or you could go to Facebook and just type in DERFCAST. I want to thank Bob from Bob's Radio Cafeteria for introducing me to Allan Bolte. Thank you, Allan, and thank you out there. My first 30 shows have been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to 30 more. And remember, stand up to bullies. It's that easy.